Simply Scuba presents the Deco Stop podcast. Hi everybody, welcome to the Deco Stop podcast and welcome to 2022. Happy New Year everybody. It's a new year, getting back into the swing of things after a nice holiday break, and so let's jump straight into website updates. So at the moment, if you head over to the Simply Scuba website, you'll see our winter sale is in full effect. The main set of header is up to 40% off, but if you actually go into the department, you can actually filter it or whatever by how much money is off, and I think it even goes up to like 70% some items. I think legally we have to put up to 40% off because it has to be a certain sort of amount of items in that sale has to be at 40% off. Legal mumbo jumbo stuff. But yeah, if you're sort of looking for some new dive gear ready for the 2022 diving season, that's the place to go. Looking at the new in departments, we have the X Deep Regulator. That's the NX700 LS200. Bit of a mouthful, but it's a lovely regulator. We've got that both with a hose and without a hose, so just the separate first and second stages if you want to use your own sort of hose lengths. Lovely regulator. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. That's my product of the week, but yeah, if you're in the market for a new regulator, yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. It's I'll talk about it later. We also have the Atomic T25 in both A-clamp and DIN and sort of insensible numbers. Now this is their limited edition anniversary regulator. Few of the brands, every now and then they bring out their anniversary regulators, and they're very unique. They're very exclusive. They only make so many of them, and the T25 is very funky. It's got a it's like a rainbow coating. It's, you know, when you see certain cars and as you move, the paint kind of changes color. It's that kind of what is it? Incandescent or something, iridescent, whatever the word is. It kind of changes color as you look at it, so very cool. It's basically a T3 regulator, so incredibly lightweight. It's made out of titanium, so it's light, but it's also strong and obviously corrosion resistant. Very nice, very smooth breathe, and yeah, they're only making a handful of these. We managed to get our hands on some, so but yeah, when they're sold out, they're sold out. So if you're in the market for a new regulator, it's definitely worth heading over to simplyscuba.com. Moving on to social channel updates, looking at YouTube, a couple of days ago on Friday, I did the first Ask Mark of the year. If you have any questions or any topics that you want me to elaborate on, pop them down in either send us a message on Instagram, or you can pop them down in the YouTube comment section. If you use the hashtag Ask Mark, all one word, anywhere in your comments, it brings it right up to the top of my list, so I can chat about it in next Friday's show. They can be questions, they can be corrections, because sometimes I do make mistakes. So yeah, let us know down in the comments. Yesterday on Saturday, if you're listening to this on Sunday as we release it, but yesterday I did a how regulators. So that's a I don't really know if that series has a name yet. I think it's just Google questions or something. But basically, I start off. Google has this clever system where if you ask a question and you search for it on Google, it comes up with people also ask, and there are certain questions in there, and I basically just go through those, and there are some wonderful questions in there, some that I've never heard of. So yeah, I basically go through that. I start with a small question such as how regulators, and just kind of run from there and see where that takes me. So head over to YouTube, you'll find that up there. And on the 11th, which I think is this Tuesday, we have Scuba Tips on Navigation. So Top Tip Tuesday, they're usually quite short and fast, just little tips here and there that I've picked up over my years as a dive instructor, and they're on like different things such as navigation or BCDs or whatever it is. But yeah, this Tuesday is on navigation. Now, moving on to scuba news and interesting things that have piqued my interest. I had quite a few weeks because I've been away for a few weeks of sort of news articles and stuff. But yeah, a few of them caught my eye. The first one is that there is now a PADI speciality for magic, basically. When I first saw this, I thought, but of course there is. But yeah, actually, I kind of looked at the guy that created it. He made this yeah, sort of scuba magician cert, and it's actually kind of fun, to be honest. And there's a whole video, and it shows a whole bunch of different sort of magic tricks that you can do underwater, and yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's mainly for like safety stops and stuff, somewhere where you can do it sort of safely. But yeah, some of them look quite good actually, and I'm a fan of magic. But yeah, when I first read it, I was like, oh, there's a new PADI speciality, and it's the PADI Scuba Magician cert. But yeah, it is now a officially recognised PADI speciality. I don't think you can do it as part of your like advanced open water quite yet, but yeah, you can sort of sign up and yeah, learn how to. It's made with very I mean. Rudimentary is an unfortunate way of saying it, but you don't need any prior like magical skills to take part in this course. They're fairly. I can't think of a better word than rudimentary or basic. That doesn't do him justice. But you don't have to have like really nimble fingers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it teaches you a whole bunch of magic tricks. And obviously now you're in this weightless environment, and yeah, it's very clever. There's a video. The chap that created it is called Chef Anton. He's at MSDT, and he's actually part of Hollywood's Magic Castle. And yeah, when you enroll in the course, you get this sort of box with all the sort of bits and bobs, because some of them are like card tricks. Obviously, you can't do it with normal cards because they just fall apart. And a few other things, magic bits and bobs that you can pull out of your hat or whatever. But yeah, I just thought, when I first started, I thought, ugh, gimmicky. Of course, there's a speciality for that. But actually watching the video, yeah, that would be quite fun if someone did that during a safety stop or something. Just pulled out some magic tricks, and I think one of them you have to think about something, and then he shoots up a DSMB, and when you get up to the surface, it's got a picture of whatever you thought of on the DSM. Clever stuff, magic. Don't know how it works, but yeah, if you're into it, yeah, hit them up. There'll be a link down in the sort of description below. Fourth Element, they have their outlet at the moment, so yeah, head over to fourthelement.com. They've got outlet departments just selling through some of their of like last season's stuff at discount prices. So if you want some t-shirts and hoodies and bits and bobs, yeah, there's all sorts of bits and bobs on there. So head over. Obviously, it's going to be size dependent, and when it sells out, it sells out. But yeah, they'll all be at sort of discounted values. National Geographic released a interesting article. It's a little bit of a longer read, but it's definitely interesting. And it's about scientists who are sort of off the coast of Northwest Africa, and there's a few others kind of dotted around working on similar projects. But they're working out to see if they can use sort of crushed up limestone to help reduce or sort of CO2 levels, and try and, oh, sorry, my dogs are playing, and try and increase the alkalinity of sort of seawater, which is affecting sort of marine life. At the moment, they're sort of working out. They've got these mesocosms, so small little, I say small, you could probably fit in them. I think it's about 8,000 litres of seawater in these like plastic containers in the waters, and they're experimenting with different levels of sort of alkaline to help sort of see how that affects local sort of species and plankton in the area and corals and all that kind of stuff, and sort of experimenting with different things to put in. But they're basically looking to simulate the natural weathering of rock. So what happens is usually rainwater comes in, it rains on the land, and then it just erodes carbon absorbing rock, which naturally kind of flushes into waterways, and that helps to absorb this carbon dioxide. And yeah, they're looking of a way to basically speed that up and do it artificially. At the moment, I think it's they said it absorbs like 1 gigaton of carbon dioxide per year because of this natural weathering. But to enhance it and scale it up to like a sort of a global scale using this technique could mean that it could absorb somewhere around 100 gigatons of carbon dioxide each year. And they said that basically because man-made CO2 emissions are somewhere in the range of 36 gigatons, this could be a huge opportunity. But of course, they don't want to just do it, because they don't really know how biodiversity is going to be affected, the best places that they can be put. There's also a few different minerals that they could use. Some are a bit more effective, but of course they want to know the long-term consequences and if there are going to be any unintended consequences. So of course they're just going through all of this testing to make sure that they know as much as they possibly can before they sort of implement it anywhere. So they're doing this in sort of relatively small scale experiments. There's like a 33-day experiment in that sort of off the coast of Africa, but they're also looking to sort of expand it out into Norwegian waters. So they're looking for a test this May, which is going to involve much larger, like 50,000 litre mesocosms, whatever it's called, contained sort of environments, so they can sort of have them in the water, but it's not affecting the water around them, but it's got the same sun, it's got the same rain, the same temperatures and all that kind of stuff. So it's as close to that exact environment as they possibly can without affecting the actual local environment. And yeah, hopefully this is a sort of a positive thing. They're mainly looking at they're also looking at quicklime, which is a byproduct of the cement industry. So that dissolves quite easily, and it's abundant because we still use quite a lot of concrete. However, it does require burning of limestone to produce it. So it's kind of 2 steps forwards and 1 step back. They don't really want to use that if they can avoid it. The most promising option at the moment is something called olivine, which I've never heard of before, but it's a greenish silicate-based mineral that pound for pound sequesters twice as much CO2 as quicklime and 4 times as much as natural limestone. So they're going to be using this olivine mineral in that Norwegian research, and yeah, hopefully all of the numbers are good, and it can help us to just eliminate as much carbon dioxide as possible and try and reverse it, make it actually carbon negative, looking towards the future. Because at the moment, if you didn't know, the oceans, they already soak up a good like 90% of the planet's sort of heat and around a quarter of our carbon dioxide emissions. So it's looking at these kind of environments to try and absorb as much carbon dioxide and kind of lock it down as deep down in the sort of oceans as possible without affecting the pH of the water too much, and getting it back to what's a little bit better for sort of marine life and corals especially. So yeah, that was an interesting read. Again, the link will be down in the description to have a look at it. I've skipped over a lot of the stuff in there, but yeah, it is definitely worth reading. Next one comes from the Smithsonian and archaeologists off the coast of Spain. They think that they found a really interesting like mythical temple. It's the Temple of Hercules, and this has always been sort of mentioned in all sorts of sort of ancient texts. And they say everyone from like Julius Caesar, Hannibal, Scipio Africanus worshipped at this Temple of Hercules. Which was this sort of religious sanctuary on the coast, but no one really knew exactly where it was. And even this, now that they claim to have found it, there are some that saying that no, they haven't found it. They found something else. They've got their triangulation numbers wrong. Whatever, but basically they were using lidar and they were scanning the coast, the waters off of Spain, and yeah, there were a lot of straight lines in the images, and it kind of ticks a lot of the boxes from how it was described. So yeah, they reckon that they found it. Obviously, they're getting sort of quite excited, and they say, yeah, we reckon it's this. I don't think they're absolutely conclusive that it is, but they're going to be sort of excavating and analysing what they bring up. But yeah, and it doesn't sound like it's too deep, because this used to be just the coast. It's just that water levels have sort of risen up. I mean, part of it I think was a docking area, so it had this like harbour area out front, and now just sea levels have risen and they just overtook it. So I don't think it's sort of overly deep, but yeah, I think this is something that maybe once all the archaeologists and whatnot have done their thing, maybe it's something that we can visit and sort of poke around. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting. And finally, an update on Ghost Fishing UK's. They had a winter warmer scheduled for the weekend of the 15th and the 16th of January. Just a get together at NDAC. However, because of COVID and all that kind of restrictions, they've had to change that to a digital platform. It's free. Tickets are free. It's going to be over Zoom. It's going to be on the 15th and the 16th of January. It's going to start at 6 p.m. GMT. But yeah, all you have to do is head over to ghostfishing.co.uk. Again, links down in the description. It's free. You just add your ticket to the basket, and I think there are only like 100 tickets in total. So get in there sooner rather than later, and just make sure that you're free in the afternoon of the 15th and on the 16th as well. And yeah, you'll learn some interesting stuff. There's a online raffle, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it is just a good way to sort of meet and greet and just sort of learn about ghost fish recovery, what Ghost Fishing UK do. But yeah, head over and yeah, as I said, all of those links, they'll be down in the description below. So if you're interested, you want to read on them further, yeah, click there. Now on to my product of the week. We're looking at the X-Deep NX700 LS200 Regulator. Now this is categorically X-Deep. They're very good at this, at taking a concept, something very traditional, and just twisting it slightly and making something very, very different, but very, very good. So starting off with the first stage itself, it's a swivel turret first stage, which there are a lot of swivel turret first stages out there nowadays, but this is very different to any others out there, because the turret, instead of it being sort of on the top and swiveling like 90 degrees or like in line with the with your cylinder, it's actually perpendicular to the cylinder, so it rotates on that axis, and that allows you basically have a little post on the inside that you can screw in and stop that turret from rotating, or you can just remove it completely. If you remove it completely, then you can have the low pressure hoses routing in whichever direction you want, and they can bend and flex as you need them to. But with that post, there are, I think it's 3 different locations where you can have it. So the turret can be rotated in one of 3 positions. And that allows for, so in this position, it's great for single cylinders. In this position, it's great for twin cylinders. In this position, it's better for such and such. So it's a very customizable first stage, and they've definitely worked it out in that, yeah, all these different regulator hose configurations. It's very flexible. It's fairly compact as well. It's not like long and thin like a lot of sort of rotating turrets are nowadays. So yeah, but cold water rated, all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I can't quite figure out is they made it 232 DIN instead of 300 bar DIN. The only real difference is a couple extra screw threads on that DIN screw, but yeah, they put it as a 232, which isn't the end of the world. I don't really use 300 bar too much anymore, so 232 is perfectly fine. But it's an odd choice, and I don't really know why they went down that route. But hey, they went down that route. It's cold water rated. Yeah, it's a clever first stage. Onto the second stage. The second stage looks much more traditional. It's kind of rounded. The front cover, and the purge button is a big like solid purge button, so it can't like jam anywhere. You do have adjustable breathing on it, but actually breathing from it is one of the smoothest regulators, or at least the one that I got to test out, that I've ever had, to be honest. I wasn't expecting like amazing things from it because it's pretty much their first regulator, so I just figured it would just be a fairly generic regulator, but actually incredibly smooth. With some regulators, you can get that kind of raspy sort of action at some times when you're breathing it. But with this one, very silky smooth. However they've got that action, they have got it down to a T. So if you're after a really nice breathing experience, lovely regulator, definitely worth checking out. And yeah, 2 different versions. You can get it with a hose, which is kind of a if you know the MyFlex XT Tech range, it's kind of like that. Instead of like a heavy rubber hose or a very light but scratchy braided hose, it's like a braided hose but with like a silicone coating on the outside. I don't think it's silicone. I think it's like polyurethane or something. But yeah, it's light, but it's smooth. It's just a good all-rounder. Or yeah, you can just buy it as first and second stage in one box, and just fit whichever hose you want. It is the standard threads, so you can pick and choose whatever hoses you like. But yeah, that's my product of the week. It's back in stock on sort of Simply Scuba. Again, links down in the description. But yeah, it's really nice breathe. That was my main sort of takeaway from it. You got the amazing first stage, which is great, but I was honestly quite shocked at how nice it breathed compared to other manufacturers that have been doing it for years and years. This one, it makes a really smooth breathe. And finally, on to my question of the week, with this, which this week is inspired by that magic speciality, and that's what is there to do on a safety stop. So a lot of people, especially when they first like start out, your dive computer barks at you and tells you that you've got to stay at this depth for 3 minutes. And a lot of divers, especially when they're first like starting out, they just kind of sit there and stare at their dive computers for 3 minutes, just watching that 3 turn into a 2, and then that 2 turn into a 1. But there's so much more to do on a safety stop. Sure, you have to stay at that depth, but you don't have to stay, or in a lot of cases, you don't have to stay exactly where you are and just sit there waiting, doing nothing. So what can you do? I mean, obviously, magic now is an option. Which I'd never really considered before. But yeah, if you can do some underwater magic, then yeah, that would be cool. There's a cert for that nowadays. I mean, I used to do a fair amount of tic-tac-toe, some noughts and crosses, either in your on a slate or on a on your wet notes or something. I used to do a lot of teaching in a quarry, so there was algae on like wooden platforms, so you could do it on that. Again, in the quarry, it was a former brick quarry, so you could stack up stones and do all that kind of stuff. If you're diving out on the reef, there's no reason why, unless there's current or anything, why you can't just cruise around at 3 meters and look at the reef. There's still plenty to do. Just because you're on a safety stop doesn't mean that you have to just sit in one position and do nothing. You can just cruise around at 3 to 5 meters and do your stop there. Nowadays, I tend to do a lot of like litter picking. That's kind of in part with the 2 minute foundation. They encourage people to take 2 minutes out of their daily life, whatever it is, their daily commute, to just do some cleaning up. And yeah, that kind of fits perfectly into like scuba diving safety stops. You got 3 minutes, you don't really have much else to do. I mean, yeah, you are limited to the depth, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I was doing it out in the Philippines when I was last out there. You're just cruising around at around 3 meters. You see a plastic bag or something, you collect it. So that's always something that I have in the back of my mind, is just looking for anything that I can remove from the ocean, or any plastics that you can remove from the ocean. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, you can practice skills. That's usually one that that is kind of recommended when you're doing your training. Just practice your skills, but do make sure that you're doing it in a sort of a safe condition. Make sure that your buddy knows what you're doing, and they can look out for you. Don't start to do shutdown drills whilst they're turned around, and then you suddenly get into trouble. But just getting used to taking your mask off and putting it back on, because as much as you do it in your entry-level courses, if you don't do it every now and then, when it actually happens in a real-world situation and someone kicks you in the face or something, it's much more of a shock because you haven't done it for 3 years. But if you do it every now and then on a safety stop, then yeah, oh okay, I do this all the time, it's perfectly fine. Practice those kind of skills. I mean, I used to play I Spy as well. That's quite good for your communications. So you can look around and then you have to turn to your buddy and say, well, I spy, using hand signals, and then try and communicate what you spy using hand signals, and then they have to communicate back, or at least point out what you can spot out in the water. And that's a good way of kind of training your brain and trying to think of how to effectively communicate using your hands underwater. And it can help to sort of expand your vocabulary underwater, as it were. So that's always a fun one. Just don't sit there like looking at your dive computer screen. I mean, even if you're sort of out and you're in the current, you're holding on to I don't know, a shot line or whatever, and don't just look at your dive computer. Look out into the blue, because there can be some stuff, and if you're so focused on your dive computer, then you're gonna miss it. And yeah, it's definitely worth just glancing out into the blue, just looking around, seeing what's going on, because yeah, you might miss something. But there is plenty of stuff to do on a stop. I've heard of some divers, they bring down like MP3 players for longer stops, which yeah, is perfectly fine. But yeah, there's still plenty to do on a safety stop. It just takes a little bit of imagination. Buddies do make it a bit better, and yeah, I don't know, maybe learn some magic. And that's it for the podcast. So thank you for joining me, everybody. Happy New Year, all that kind of stuff. Now is the time that you should start to like dig out all of your diving equipment, making sure it still works. If you like leave it in the garden shed or something, or up in the attic, then really you should be digging it out, because the last thing that you want to do is get all excited for the diving season and then realize, oh, actually my regulators need servicing, or this needs a test, or the rats have eaten through my wetsuit. So yeah, try and be proactive. If your stuff needs servicing, get it to your local dive centre, so to get back onto your physical fitness, because I know that December and the sort of the winter holidays can be rough. But yeah, make sure that you're all fit and healthy, your gear is up to scratch, and yeah, get ready for the new diving season and maybe learn some magic tricks. But yeah, don't forget to follow and subscribe, do all that social media stuff, either here on Instagram, over on YouTube, wherever you're listening to us, hit that subscribe button and sort of rate us and comment where you can. It just makes our lives a little bit easier and helps us rank, basically. Head over to simplyscuba.com, all sorts of new and exciting stuff. We do have some exciting stuff lined up for this season. Heading into the diving season, well, of course, we've got the 2022 lineups for all the big brands. We also have a couple of new brands coming that I can't really talk about yet. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. If you're buying stuff, remember we've got Klarna, we've got Adyen, all sorts of clever gizmos and things to make your buying options much easier. The 2 Minute Foundation, mentioned them earlier. Head over and search for the 2 Minute Foundation, see how you can help out. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, queries, or corrections, let us know in the comments, mainly on the YouTube. That's where I look for them mostly. But if you use the hashtag AskMark, it just makes it a lot easier for me to find them. Thank you for listening, everybody. Happy New Year, and of course, safe diving.